Between amazingly bloody action and interesting plot choices, the Netflix series has a great start with Season 1. We begin the story with a scientist named Lisa arriving at a mysterious castle in a European country known as Wallachia in 1455. Vlad Tepes, also known as Count Dracula, is the owner of this castle. He's intrigued by this Lisa and allows her to study sciences in his castle. Jump to 20 years later, and Lisa is being burned at the stake by the church under the assumption that she is a witch. They didn't know that she was actually the bride of the vampire himself. Dracula learns of their misdeeds and warns the priests and onlookers they should repent by 1 year, lest they know his wrath. 1 year later, Dracula delivers on his promise. Blood rains from the skies, dropping demons onto the people that murder each and every one of them. After the gruesome affair is done, Dracula orders his unholy army to attack all neighboring towns and cities. From here, we meet Trevor Belmont. The plot then follows Trevor and his journey through the countryside. We learn that the Belmont clan, whose clansmen were once hunters of monsters, was excommunicated by the church and are deemed heretics. They were accused of dealing in black magic. Just about anybody that discovers he is a Belmont becomes very hostile towards him, and our first interaction with him is in a bar fight. While barely getting out of it, he then continues his travels. Trevor arrives at Greshit and learns that they are preparing for an attack from Dracula's demons. From there he meets many characters, including corrupt priests, doomed speakers, a magician, and a vampire. Trevor himself has a lot of fun. He's proud of the Belmont clan and the work he used to do. As much as he wishes to avoid conflict, he is more than willing to duke it out should it come to that. Even though it's tragic that he's excommunicated and hated by the people, he's still snarky and badass. I loved the whip combat in this show. Trevor throws a sword into a creature, latches the whip onto said sword, and then whips the sword around, and it is awesome. Also being voiced by freaking Oakenshield is a bonus. Count Dracula, even though he is the main baddie of the show, he is not the main antagonist of this season. Now, don't get me wrong, he unleashes unspeakable horror, but he does it out of vengeance rather than out of pure evil. Lisa was the only human he loved, let alone respected. With her murder, Dracula loses his tolerance of humans and vows to destroy them. This adds depth not only to Dracula, but to the mythos and other characters. This also builds a bridge between Trevor and Dracula. In this story, they are really two sides of the same coin. Whereas Dracula forsakes the humans, Trevor is forsaken by them. Both are also viewed as monsters by those same humans, but some do see the good in them. They both also fight for what they believe in. Dracula kills because he has lost his love, and Trevor fights to regain his honor. And their true enemy lies within the bishop that started this whole thing. Saifa Belnades is a powerful magician, and I have faith that she will become a great supporting character, and maybe a love interest? As a character, she didn't really do too much. After all, this season was only 4 episodes long and a running time barely over 20 minutes, so there is only so much that can be done. But everything she does say and do is great. She fights alongside Trevor without hesitation, and her final moments in the season bring the character to her full potential. Adrian Tepes, also known as Alucard, is the half-human, half-vampire son of Dracula and Lisa. After the death of Lisa, Dracula is filled with rage. But Alucard still sees the good in humans, and feels that should Dracula go through with his plan, many innocents like Lisa will perish. Dracula believes there are no innocents, and that is the difference between him and his son, so Alucard vows to stop him. Also, during a big fight scene, it appears that they included an ability Alucard has in Symphony of the Night, and if you see the show and have played the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. And another thing, during the intro, it's alluded that Alucard might be able to change into a wolf, which is also something that he does in Symphony of the Night, so maybe in Season 2 they'll add a lot of his skills and spells. As amazing of adaptations these characters are from the video game into the show, you can't help but realize one omission. Where is Grant Dynasty? Grant is a playable character in the game Dracula's Curse, which is what the show is based off of, like Saifa and Alucard. He's a pirate that is able to climb walls, change his jump in mid-air, and is overall more agile than Trevor. He has his uses in the game, but would the character translate well for the show? After all, Trevor and Alucard are more than capable in the physical aspect. Would Grant even be necessary in the fight against Dracula? Maybe we'll see Grant in the next season, as a main character or otherwise. Obviously, a lot was added to the story of Dracula's curse, but the show sticks to the mythology of the series. Lisa is still Alucard's mother and is burned at the stake. Sypha is saved from a Cyclops, albeit in a different place. Even the setting and date match. In the game, the Belmonts are feared as well. But the church sent a secret team to defeat Dracula, which Sypha was a part of. Eventually, the church does go to Trevor as a last resort. In the show, Sypha and her people are blamed for Dracula's actions, and Trevor sort of comes to the conclusion that he needs to kill Dracula himself. By switching the role of the church to be more villainous in the show, it created the similarities between Trevor and Dracula, so I'm okay with this change as it makes the story more interesting. Basically, with the show we get the story of Dracula's curse, but with more detail. We know more about why Dracula hates humans, why the Belmonts are feared and despised, and the driving point for Alucard to go against his own father. So in the end, some details are changed or built on, but the show sticks to the mythos and obviously respects the series, rather than be a shameless cash-in. Castlevania proves to be a solid beginning to a Dracula's Curse adaptation. Season 1 is short and sweet, and leaves you wanting more in the best way possible. Overall, the quality of the animation is good. Some of it can be a little poor or rushed, but the action and gore is done very well. It was said that this would be Castlevania done in the vein of Game of Thrones, which was not a lie. Very bloody, very violent, and very foul-mouthed. Sometimes the swearing would be too much. After hearing the F-word said repeatedly, it started feeling like I was listening to a 10-year-old who had discovered the word for the first time and couldn't help but say it. After a while, it was used a bit less, but when the material is so mature already, what are a few swears anyway? I am slightly disappointed that death hasn't seemed to make an appearance yet, but this is just the first season. Dracula has an army of the undead at his disposal, so maybe Death and some others are a part of it, and will show up in episodes to come. The music was also fantastic. The feel of it was very Castlevania and fits a vampire show. Although, as any fan would tell you, you have to put in Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears in the series, and they have not been heard yet. There may have been a reference to Bloody Tears as Dracula himself cries tears of blood, but this could be more of a vampire thing rather than a reference to the song. I hope in the final battle with Dracula, some form of Vampire Killer shows up. Truth be told though, I am fine with the omission. The music is good and accompanies the events very well. It helps the show have its own identity, rather than being tied to the source material. It makes me feel like the show can stand on its own without having to rely solely on fan service. As it stands right now, I am very happy with this adaptation, and am eagerly awaiting more. Netflix already renewed a second season, so hopefully we won't have to wait too long. Also, there's supposed to be double the amount of episodes, so that's even better. Thanks for listening, and let me know your thoughts. I really like this show, but did it hold up to your standards? And if not, what could have been done differently? For those that did like the show, what did you like most, and what do you hope to see in the next season? I'll see you then.